I believe we have Mike connected now. He's been very busy traveling today. Mike, can you hear me?
I can, and thank you for having me, Laura.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for making time to come on Loomer Unleashed tonight. I know you're extremely busy traveling today, but I know that you have a lot to say as a Trump surrogate about these massive W's that President Trump keeps stacking this week following the debate 5 days ago. What's your take on, I guess really it's just unprecedented, these last 5 days, the debate, but also your analysis of the implications of the Supreme Court ruling yesterday that grants President Trump absolute immunity for official acts, which includes his actions on January 6th?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court decision in the Trump presidential immunity case is a monumental ruling, one of the most important rulings from the Supreme Court in its history, because it holds that the President of the United States, any President of the United States, is immune from criminal prosecution for his official acts, not his private misconduct, but his official acts. And if the Supreme Court did not rule the way that it did yesterday, I guess, or 6-3, with the six Republican appointed justices in the majority and the three Democrat appointed liberals in the dissent, if the Supreme Court did not rule the way that it did, you would see the destruction of the presidency, the destruction of our Constitution, therefore the destruction of our country. Because what do you think would happen if Trump is back in office? There's no doubt that if the Supreme Court did not rule that presidents are immune for their official acts, you would see the Trump 47 Justice Department prosecuting President Obama for capital murder, for his extrajudicial drone strikes on two Americans, including a minor. You would see the Trump 47 Justice Department prosecuting President Biden for his illegal mass parole of 10 million plus illegal immigrants into our country and their resulting rapes and kidnappings and murders and other violent crimes. You would see the Trump 47 Justice Department prosecuting President George W. Bush for lying about weapons of mass destruction and the resulting hundreds of thousands of deaths in Iraq. And I think the Supreme Court correctly understood that if it did not find that there is immunity from criminal prosecution, like they have for federal judges, like they have for members of Congress, both civil and criminal immunity, that it would destroy our country. And I would make one final point about this, Laura. The reason that the Supreme Court had to step up and do this, it was because President Biden, his Attorney General Merrick Garland, the Biden Justice Department, and these Biden Democrat prosecutors all over the country, they politicized and weaponized our justice systems to go after their political enemy, Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, President Trump's top advisors, his attorneys like John Eastman and Jeff Clark and Rudy Giuliani, his supporters on January 6th, parents outraged by gender chaos in schools, the resulting rapes in bathrooms, Christians praying outside of abortion clinics, 75-year-old Christians going to prison while Biden gives amnesty to the Biden family, $20 million to every scumbag Biden from every trouble spot around the world, Russia, China, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, amnesty to BLM and Antifa and Hamas and trans terrorist and abortion industry activists who are a hell of a lot more deadly and destructive than the January 6th supporters. So this is a very good result from the Supreme Court, and they should be praised for this.
Yeah, it's a good decision, and it's a decision that President Trump had really been advocating for these last few months. But of course, the left and the Democrat Party, Mike, has been completely and absolutely unhinged in their response and the arguments countering the Supreme Court. You have AOC talking about articles of impeachment for the Supreme Court justices. You have Speaker Hakeem Jeffries calling the Supreme Court corrupt. And you have Democrat operatives like Carrie Sisson, who has been invited to the White House in their official TikTok creator lounge, who posted that Joe Biden should call in SEAL Team 6 to order the assassination of Donald Trump and then call it an official act as President of the United States of America. Today, and I believe we have a screenshot of this, you actually had the Huffington Post that had an article talking about how Joe Biden should assassinate Donald Trump and then call it an official act. I mean, they are now actively encouraging felonies. It is a felony to advocate for the assassination of President Donald Trump, or any president for that matter. And here we have it right here. Supreme Court gives Joe Biden the legal okay to assassinate Donald Trump. What do you think about this? Did you see this? Are you aware of this article? And did you see President Trump's campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, told Harry Sisson in a public tweet that he was going to be expecting a visit from Secret Service after he encouraged the assassination of Donald Trump following this 6-3 ruling?
Yeah, these Democrats are insane, right? If this is their response, they tried to bankrupt President Trump for non-fraud. They tried to throw him in prison for the rest of his life for non-crimes. They tried to take him off the ballot under a bogus reading of the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment, and now they're openly calling for his assassination. These people are absolutely insane, and it just shows you how scared they are, how desperate they are, because they know that President Biden is a disaster. He's a failed president. We saw that at the debate. We see that with the illegal invasion that he has aided and abetted at our southern border. Over 10 million illegal immigrants flooding into our country with their migrant crime, rapes, kidnappings, murders, and other violent crimes. You see that with interest rates that make it impossible for people to buy homes and cars. You see it with inflation, where real Americans in real America have a hard time making ends meet and putting food on the table. This is a disaster of a presidency. Joe Biden is a disaster. He's made us much less safe in the world because he's corrupt, and China and Russia are exploiting his corruption. And these Democrats are desperate because they see the polling. They know that President Trump is on a glide path to victory so long as conservatives get out and make sure we vote. And they're desperate. They're trying to, you're seeing the desperation. They destroyed our intel agencies. They politicized and weaponized our intel agencies and our law enforcement going back over the last 8 years because they fear Donald Trump, and they're going to do very desperate things between now and November.
Yeah, I'm thinking that there's probably going to be a pharmaceutical shortage of Xanax in the D.C. area over these next 4 months, because I imagine that there's a run on every single pharmacy following the debate 5 days ago and all of these wins. I mean, not only do you have the Supreme Court victory, but today it was announced that following the Supreme Court victory and a motion that was filed by President Trump's legal team requesting that the sentencing date for President Trump in his New York trial set for July 11th be moved. Judge Merchan actually granted that request, and now the sentencing has been moved till to September 18th. So they were really hoping that Donald Trump was going to go to jail on July 11th, which would stop him from attending the RNC convention. But now everybody's been exposed to the disastrous performance by Joe Biden. We have some clips here of CNN panicking after the debate and some of the reactions this week from Democrats. But every single thing that they were counting on has been dissolved. I mean, the only thing that the Democrats could really campaign on, Mike, and correct me if you think I'm wrong or if you want to elaborate on this, but it's abortion. This lie that Donald Trump took away a woman's right to choose, even though he actually allowed for abortion to be dealt with on a state level. He did not encourage a federal ban, and he has publicly said, including during this debate, that he does not support a federal abortion ban. He doesn't even support the banning of an abortion pill. He said during the debate that he supports access for the abortion pill as long as it's dealt with on a state level. But then this Jack Smith fantasy of, oh, Donald Trump is going to go to jail and he's not fit to serve because he carried out an insurrection. Well, now we're seeing that his actions on January 6th have essentially been excused by the Supreme Court as an official act. So what does the Democrat Party have to campaign on now that the lie about J6 is gone, the lie about Charlottesville is gone, and this lie about abortion is being dissolved before their eyes too?
Yeah, and you see Jack Smith is leaking to the Washington Post that he's going to continue to prosecute President Trump even if he wins the election all the way up to Inauguration Day, which is just absolutely insane. Look, this is a criminal conspiracy by President Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco and Jack Smith and Jay Bratt and Matthew Graves and Tish James and Alvin Bragg and Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade and all these people, these Democrat government officials and people on the outside like Andrew Weissman, who are engaged in a criminal conspiracy to violate President Trump's constitutional rights, which is a very serious felony under 18 U.S.C. sections 241 and 242. And on day one, when President Trump is back in office on January 20th, 2025, his acting attorney general should open a criminal probe on this criminal conspiracy and bring in all these people and get all their documents and get all their testimony, because as they say, nobody is above the law. And I think that President Trump's Justice Department should prove that on January 20th, starting on January 20th.
Yeah, and it's also really funny to see, too, because we saw that Congress had ordered Colangelo and Alvin Bragg to come testify. And now, what did you see? You saw Alvin Bragg say, well, I can't technically come testify until Donald Trump is sentenced. And we saw that they said, okay, well, then you're going to come testify the day after he's sentenced, which was July 12th. Do you have any word or any insight into what's going to happen now that President Trump's sentencing has been postponed till September 18th? Does the House still plan on having Alvin Bragg and Mr. Colangelo testify on July 12th as planned, or is it going to have to take place on September 19th?
That's a very good question, but I want to give you a lot of credit, Laura, because you were the one who exposed Lauren Michon, the daughter of this Manhattan Democrat Biden donor judge, Juan Merchan. This Lauren Michon has been raising millions of dollars and lining her pocket off of her father's unprecedented criminal trial of a former and likely future president. And you're the one who exposed this. And this is a clear violation of New York statutes. Judge Merchan had to recuse on this case. And that's not just crazy Mike Davis or Laura Loomer saying that. That is a former federal Clinton judge went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th and said that under New York statutes, Judge Merchan had to recuse. What was Judge Merchan's response to that? He retaliated against President Trump. He threatened President Trump. He told President Trump, if President Trump even mentions Lauren Michon's name, let alone her corruption, his corruption on this case, he was going to send President Trump to jail. He also said he was going to send President Trump to jail if he mentioned Matthew Colangelo, who you raised. That was a senior Obama and Biden political operative. Obama DNC, Biden, Obama White House, Obama Labor Secretary Tom Perez's top aide, worked for the New York Democrat Attorney General when they did 4 years of lawfare against Trump when he was in the White House. Matthew Colangelo was on the parachute team in the Biden Justice Department. He was the number 3 official in the Biden Justice Department. He got deployed to Bragg's office to bring that bogus case against Trump.
And did you know? Did you know that Michael Colangelo, his wife, Alvin Bragg, his wife, and Jonathan Soros all attended school together at the same exact time at Harvard? Like, what are the odds that all of these people went to school together? They all went to Harvard at the exact same time. So it's very incestuous. All of these people have been working in the same circles for a very long time. They're all Obama holdovers, as you just said. But you're absolutely correct. And in fact, I caught up with Caitlin Collins. Perhaps we have the video. We can play it the first day of the trial on April 15th. And I confronted her and I asked her why she wasn't calling for Judge Merchan to recuse himself after she had that judge on her from the District of New York on her show talking about how Judge Merchan had that conflict and needed to recuse himself. So I chased Caitlin Collins down the street. You were actually there, Mike, and we were both there actually doing coverage for a War Room. Let me go ahead and play this clip for you, and you can see Caitlin Collins' reaction. Because now Caitlin Collins, after that debate, well, she's singing a whole new tune, just like everybody else at CNN. So let's go ahead and play this clip. Hey, Caitlin. Caitlin. Hey, Laura Loomer here. I was just wondering, the other day you had a judge on. The other day you had a retired U.S. federal judge on your show, and you were asking her about the motion that was filed by President Trump and his legal team about whether or not Judge Merchan should recuse himself, right, over his daughter's conflicts of interest. What do you think about that? I saw that the judge actually said that the motion was pretty strong, but you didn't really have much to say.
We had her on the show, didn't we?
Yeah, but you didn't really have much to say when she said it was strong. Do you think that Judge Merchan should recuse himself? Doesn't want to answer the question? No? All right. All right.
That, can I just say this, Laura Loomer, that right there is why you are a national treasure. That clip right there, it just shows that you are dogged in your journalism. You are a national treasure, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and you do fantastic work as well. But it is interesting, right? It is interesting how these people only seem to want to talk when the narratives go their way. And they thought that they were going to have this amazing debate and that they were going to get Trump on all these gotcha questions. And they thought that they were going to be able to trip him up on abortion and calling him a convicted felon. And then the tables turned and everybody was sitting there thinking, oh, my God, what are we going to do? And Caitlin Collins had to lead a post-debate panel the other evening on CNN. And now, right, we're seeing that all these people that were running cover for Joe Biden and that were extremely anti-Trump, especially during this trial, have now been forced to come out and call this debate and Joe Biden exactly what he is, and that's an unmitigated disaster. Here is the post-debate coverage from the other evening, Mike, where Caitlin Collins was a participant on the panel.
Anderson, this was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic. It involves party strategists, it involves elected officials, it involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible.
Seeing their panic, Mike, and knowing what you know as a legal expert, what is your prediction from now until November? How do you see things playing out, especially now that Judge Merchan has granted the request for delayed sentencing to take place on September 18th instead? Do you foresee these charges just being completely thrown out? Do you think that Joe Biden is going to be replaced? How do you feel that the Supreme Court ruling is going to impact the other cases that President Trump is currently embroiled in, and the public opinion as it relates to President Trump's legal challenges now that the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of President Trump?
So this Biden Democrat lawfare and election interference on many different fronts, the 4 criminal indictments it's a house of cards. This house of cards is going to collapse after this presidential immunity case out of the Supreme Court. You're going to see the January 6th case in D.C. by Jack Smith. You already saw 2 of the 4 charges are going to be gutted by the Fisher decision on obstruction of justice, obstruction of an official proceeding. That gets rid of or guts 2 of the 4 charges against Trump. Then the other two charges, there's going to be probably 30% of the rest of the case gone. So Jack Smith may have 20% of his case remaining when this is done. Is he going to go to trial with 20% of his case? And that's just pre-trial. After the trial, he's going to lose on appeal because it's not a crime to object to a presidential election. It's allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the First Amendment. Democrats objected to Republican wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. You don't see Al Gore and John Kerry and Hillary Clinton in prison for objecting to those wins. This is a dog of a case. This presidential immunity case is also going to destroy Big Fannie Willis's case down in Georgia, in Fulton County, Georgia. It's going to have it's probably going to cause a mistrial with Alvin Bragg's case in New York in front of Judge Merchan, because that they relied on evidence of discussions between President Trump and 2 of his White House advisors, which the Supreme Court just said you can't use that evidence. If those conversations are immune, you can't use that evidence. So that's going to require a mistrial and maybe a retrial in New York. So what do they have left? They have the presidential records case down in Florida in front of Judge Cannon, a fair
and
judge.
That's already crumbling too, because as we saw a week and a half ago during the 3-day trial down in Fort Pierce near where I live, you had Judge Cannon basically tell the representatives for Jack Smith telling them, I don't really appreciate your tone. Trying to challenge her authority, accusing her of being, corrupt. And then they had to admit in official court documents that they falsified evidence. They actually doctored evidence. So I guess it's not really even evidence if they had to manufacture and doctor it, where they put these very explosive kind of theatrical cover pages that they printed that said classified information all over President Trump's documents to make it look like it was something out of some, secret agent 007 movie, with classified secret plastered all over Mar-a-Lago to really sensationalize and make it more salacious than it really was.
Yeah, and so I think Judge Cannon's going to make sure that President Trump, she's going to do her job. She's ruled for him on some issues, and she's ruled against him on some issues. She's actually doing her job as a judge, which is to protect the criminal defendant as he goes through the process. And these other judges, like Judge Juan Merchan, that corrupt judge in New York, whose daughter's making a lot of money off of that case, and the Judge Tanya Shukin, the Obama judge, who's comes from a family of Marxists, this left-wing radical judge in D.C.
And she's an immigrant. She's not even from this country. Neither is Judge Merchan, and neither is Judge Cannon. But at least Judge Cannon is, trying to at least be fair. But I do want to point out, as I've pointed out numerous times on this show for my viewers, all of these judges right now at the center of these indictments against President Trump, they're all foreigners. They're from Jamaica. They're from Colombia. They're from Puerto Rico. Look it up. You can see for yourself. We have third world individuals who have come from the third world. And now some of these people, I'll give Judge Cannon a pass, but in the case of Judge Chutkan and Judge Merchan, what do they say? When you import the third world, you elect the third world, and then you become the third world. These people escaped their own third world shithole countries, and now they're trying to impose their same third world shithole legal system onto our country to turn us into a third world shithole.
Well, these are definitely Marxist judges, and they are, these are Obama Marxists, both Merchan and Chutkan. They are railroading President Trump. They are ensuring that his trial is unfair, unconstitutional. They'll get reversed on appeal, but their goal is election interference. So they don't care if they get reversed after the presidential election. Their sole goal is to take out Trump legally, politically, financially before the election. And they must face these Biden Democrat operatives and prosecutors and consequences come January 20th, 2025.
Mike, you spent a lot of time with us tonight. I really appreciate any last words, any last comments that you have for the viewers tonight. Any last predictions or insight ahead of the RNC?
I would say this to your huge army of supporters, to make sure that we don't take this election for granted. Get people to register to vote and vote as early as you can. Bank your vote, because if you thought the BLM and Antifa riots were bad in 2020, just wait for the Hamas riots in 2024. You don't want to be waiting till election day to vote, because you may not get to vote.
Yeah, the summer of jihad is what I'm calling it, the summer of jihad. Absolutely. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. Where do people follow you and all of your great work?
Thank you very much, Laura, for having me. You are a patriot. My website is article3project.org, article number 3project.org. You can follow us on social media there. You can donate there, and you can take action there, which is the most important thing that you can do. And thank you, Laura.
Thank you. And lastly, Mike, are we going to be expecting to see you as a guest fill-in for Steve Bannon now that Steve Bannon has gone to prison as of yesterday? Are you going to be on the War Room a lot more? I heard a rumor.
I hope so. Unless maybe Biden will throw me in the clink too. Who knows? But my plan is to fill in. Bannon is irreplaceable. He's our general. He's the MAGA intellectual leader. But you know what? Everyone has to step up, as he says. So I will step up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. Safe travels wherever you're going, and you're welcome to come on Loomer Unleashed anytime.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you.